What is true strength? Many manga over the years have toyed with this question. What does it mean to be strong? Is strength defeating everyone who stands in your path with an iron resolve? Is it protecting the weak from those who would seek to harm them? Is strength the ability to turn your back on violence and seek peace? For years, Yukio Okumura sought strength. The strength to protect his brother. The strength to surpass and prove himself to his father and the True Cross Order. And at a latter point in the manga, the strength to end it all. Calling Blue Exorcist a shonen is a bit of an understatement. A large part of the story is what you'd expect from a typical shonen. Large flashy battles against demons, an obnoxiously annoying teenage romance fated to go nowhere, and a main character with the IQ of a goldfish, made of plastic. The point is, when you're talking about dark manga or mature themes, Blue Exorcist doesn't really come to mind, and for the most part, it's not meant to. The Blue Exorcist manga is great, and the anime is a fun watch. The first two seasons of the anime are pretty good, even though the second season diverged from the plot of the manga just a little bit, but I'm willing to call it filler and leave it at that. I have also probably read the manga like 3 times waiting for it to reach its conclusion. Its light-hearted battle shonen feel is what makes it enjoyable, for the most part. As the story progresses, the plot takes a much darker, more sinister turn. As while the series does start off almost comically, it slowly starts to take on more mature themes. And most of this darkness is focused around one person, Yukio Okumura, brother to Rin Okumura, the Blue Exorcist. Kazue Kato's work is one that truly shines in this manga, the premise of which revolves around Rin and Yukio, who are born the sons of Satan and a human woman, but with only Rin inheriting his father's powers and his iconic blue flame. The story follows Rin's journey as he joins an exorcist cram school, in an attempt to become a powerful exorcist and kill Satan, alongside his twin brother Yukio, all the while trying to keep the fact that he is the son of the most dangerous demon in existence a secret from the True Cross Order, which is essentially a giant demon-slaying cult. In the world of Blue Exorcists, most people live unassuming lives, unaware of the presence and even the existence of paranormal entities known as demons. And I mean, why would they? The average person could go their entire lives without encountering a strong enough demonic presence to cause any real issues. And the only way for a normal person to be able to see a demon is to be afflicted with a masho, which is to put simply an injury caused by a demon or something of a demonic nature. Most people never get one of these, unless you're unlucky enough to be born the twin brother of the son of Satan. Then you get one of these the moment you're born. Even though they both had the same parents, Yukio didn't inherit the blue flames of his father, and because he shared the womb with a literal monster, not only was he given him a show from birth, he was also born a physically weak and frail child. Childhood was bittersweet for the young Yukio. Although he was raised by a loving father and a protected big brother, being able to see demons from birth can really mess a kid up. Even though his adopted father Fujimoto was the former paladin, the highest rank of warrior given to an exorcist in the True Cross Order. Many of the things that go bump in the night weren't just figments of his imagination, wasn't really something a child should have to go through. Especially seeing as how Rin didn't have these problems. He grew up like a normal-ish child, with semi-super strength and the social skills of a pit bull. But seeing demons every day terrified Yukio. He didn't want to be afraid anymore. He wanted to be strong enough to protect his big brother Rin the way he protected him. He wanted to be strong like his dad, who always seemed to know how to take care of the monster under the bed. And those strong feelings led Fujimoto to ask him the question that would change Yukio's life forever. Do you want to become an exorcist? And he does, and a great one at that. That is until a couple of years down the line, where Father Fujimoto was killed by Satan, leading Rin to awaken his powers and strive to become the world's greatest exorcist to avenge his father. You think having your adopted father brutally murdered by your birth father would destabilize a couple of 15-year-old kids. But for a majority of the manga, you never really see the twins grieve. Rin is hell-bent on becoming an exorcist and killing Satan, while Yukio is focused on keeping his brother safe and hiding the truth of his heritage, while simultaneously trying to figure out why the True Cross Order allowed the offsprings of Satan to live. It didn't take long, however, for Yukio to realize that he couldn't fulfill the first of these missions. Rin was strong, and not just physically. The blue flames of Satan allowed him to bulldoze through almost any demon with relative ease. Yukio tried his best to get his brother to hide his flames because letting word get out that Satan, the one responsible for hundreds of exorcists dying 15 years ago, had a son running free wouldn't sit well with a lot of exorcists. But before long, Rin's flames became public knowledge throughout most of the True Cross Order, and it didn't sit well with a lot of exorcists. And while a lot of people had their reservations, once they saw that he was on the side of good, people began to accept him. And it did help that he yelled out every 4 chapters about how he was gonna off the devil. But you see, you can't just off the devil. You need to become an exorcist first, and for that you need Exorcist school. And it just so happens that the homeroom teacher for the first years was none other than Yukio Okumura, Rin's 15-year-old twin brother. You see, Yukio was the youngest person to ever officially become an exorcist, and ended up teaching in the Exorcist cram school, a position previously held by his father until he was deleted. But so much responsibility at such a young age gave Yukio a very rigid personality. His attitude towards life was more akin to a 40-year-old math teacher than a 13-year-old boy. Everything he did was meticulous and well planned out. He lived life following a very strict schedule. That was until he met his brother and his classmates. You see, while on his journey, Rin makes a lot of friends. Shime, his romantic interest, who for some reason has the same number of active brain cells as fermented cheese. Bon, Konekamura, and Renju, who basically form the trio of gifted genius, studies hard but doesn't make good grades, and can't be bothered. And then there's Uzumo. I don't really think she's that good of a character actually. Over the course of the manga, we get to know each of these characters on a much deeper level, with most of them having an entire arc dedicated to their character development. Uzumo's dark past and ties to the Illuminati, Bon's relationship with his father and how his family ties in with both Konekomaru and Renju's, and even Renju's betrayal, all mixed in so that each of these characters are memorable and their relationship with Rin all the more important. These arcs of character development from the supporting cast of the manga serves to flesh out the characters who would end up being Rin's companions for the duration of the manga. But these arcs also serve another purpose, to show the vast disparity between Rin and Yukio's lives. While Yukio did take an active part in these arcs, these three arcs mainly focus on how the characters grew as they learned to see Rin as more than just a half-demon son of Satan, but as a companion that they could trust. But this also highlighted the fact that these arcs of character progression were meant for Rin and not for Yukio. While Rin made allies on his final goal to defeat the Demon King, Yukio drifted farther and farther away from the only people who was ever sort of close to. The more friends Rin made on his journey, the more people Yukio distanced himself from. In his search for answers, in his search for strength, Yukio began to change. You'll think the fact that his brother was being accepted would make Yukio happy, but a part of him wasn't. Throughout the mission as teacher and students, Rin would always exclaim to his brother that he would one day surpass him, and Yukio always playfully dismissed him. But from an early point in the manga, I think Yukio secretly knew that he was far weaker than his brother. Not in physical strength, but in spirits. Rin had a life he always secretly wanted. He had friends, a love interest, the freedom that Yukio never had growing up. And he was strong, but he never paid too much attention to this, the nagging feeling of self-doubt. He was much too pragmatic for that. Not until the voice took physical form, in the form of a man called Saburota Todo. Saburota Todo, a man riddled with regrets, but who soon came to accept it as part of who he is the first of many accelerants to push Yukio down a dangerous path. You see, the True Cross Order isn't the holy demon-killing association that the world has grown to admire. The Order is really messed up, almost as bad as demons themselves. 15 years ago, the Tokyo branch of the Order was responsible for creating bodies capable of housing the Lords of Hell. And do you know the first thing Satan did when he got his body? He got laid. And the products of that steamy, unprotected night were Yukio and Rin. All of this was unknown to the twins for most of the manga, by the way. But the thing is, creating a body that can perfectly house the King of Hell is sort of difficult. So when Satan eventually burst into a ball of blue flame, he sort of killed hundreds of exorcists around the world, including the entire family of Saburota Todo. That night changed Todo's loyalty towards the Order, and he eventually ended up becoming a spy for the counter-organization known as the Illuminati, led by Lucifer, the King of Light. He stayed undercover in the Order for years, until he was asked to steal a very powerful demonic artifact called the Left Eye of the Imperial King, and it was then that he met with Yukio Okumura, who was tasked with stopping Todo alongside his brother Rin. You see, even though they fought on two different sides, Todo saw something in Yukio, a younger version of himself. But while he had grown to accept his weakness and hatred, Yukio refused to even acknowledge it. And it was at this point, during the battle for the Left Eye, we are given a line from Todo that defines Yukio's character for most of the manga thereon. There is weakness in everyone's hearts. Are you just too scared to acknowledge yours? The exchange ends with Todo fleeing with the left eye of the Imperial King, leading to a major story arc in the Blue Exorcist manga. But those words stay with Yukio. He spends his entire life trying to be strong, stronger than his brother, stronger than his father, stronger than demons that threaten to tear his world apart. This would be the last time Yukio saw Todo, however. Over the course of the manga, Yukio's character development is one more akin to an antagonist. His goals to become strong enough to protect his brother slowly erode into an unadulterated desire for strength. Slowly he begins to push everyone away as he drives himself deeper and deeper into a hole. The first foot of that hole is dug by Todo, and the second foot is dug when the flame of Satan awakens in his right eye. For his entire life, Yukio has sought to protect his brother from those who would persecute him for his flame, and all of a sudden, he found his right eye releasing those same flames. Not only that, but the man he sought to kill more than anything seemed to be using those flames to protect him. Yukio's fear of being persecuted by the True Cross Order led him to hide his abilities from others, but his newfound power led him to hunger for more, leading him to make decisions that would put not only him, but the lives of those around him at risk. In an attempt to gain power, the once calm, reasonable Yukio became erratic and dangerous, taking risks he wouldn't normally take and keeping secrets from his family, all in the name of becoming stronger. What he didn't know was that these actions would bring him to the attention of the Illuminati, who would offer him what he truly sought, power, but not quite yet. Before he could be recruited to the Illuminati, Yukio had reached the limits of his search for strength. Nothing seemed to be working, and it was then he decided to truly test the limit of his demonic heritage. What power lay behind his eye? You see, the blue flame always seemed to come out to protect Yukio when his life was threatened, and no matter what Yukio tried, he wasn't able to recreate those conditions. It wouldn't work if he always knew there was a way out. He needed true fear, no failsafes. He needed to truly face death. That night, 15-year-old Yukio Okumura stood at the top of an abandoned building, steeled his nerves, and jumped. Fortunately, Yukio awakens in a crater of blue flames. The eye had protected him. Unfortunately, this means that Yukio was being protected by Satan, the person he hated more than anything in the world, the man who took his father from him. Filled with rage and confusion, Yukio picks up his pistol and points it at his head. He screams out to his father, "Show yourself, show your true form, you monster." But before he could pull the trigger, he's interrupted by a phone call. So the young man picks up his phone and puts down the gun, and decides to live for yet another day. At this point in the story, you start to wonder if Yukio is too far gone. After this, his actions become more and more unpredictable, even going as far as putting a gun on one of his students in order to get answers about his past. Yukio's character doesn't get much better from there. As the world falls farther and farther into chaos with the growth of the gates of hell, the fighting intensifies. Yura, one of Yukio's childhood friends and surrogate big sister, is kidnapped by a demon, and the boys have to go save her. Renju betrays the True Cross Order and abducts Izumo, and the Illuminati launch a large-scale attack on the True Cross Order. All these things are happening back to back, and all the while Yukio is fighting just to stay sane. Some of the characters do eventually notice and try to help Yukio, but at this point he doesn't want their help. He believes he's come this far on his own and will figure out everything else on his own. That is until the night of his 16th birthday, the day he found out about the dark secrets of the True Cross Order. The Order is a really messed up place. Child experimentation, murder, literal deals with the devil. For a majority of his life, Yukio has fought tooth and nail for the True Cross Order, following their orders without question because he believed these were the angels in the fight, and his father, the man he trusted most in the world, knew about all these things. Over the last year, Yukio's life had been turned upside down. His birth father, who he had thought wanted nothing to do with him, had killed his adopted father and inflicted him with a power that he could very well be killed for. His younger brother, who he had trained night and day to protect from his life, had gained powers that far surpassed his wildest imagination and now had the biggest targets in the world painted on his back. And no matter how hard he tries, Yukio can't protect him. His father, Fujimoto, the man who taught him how to be an exorcist, who helped him through the darkness as a child, turned out to be affiliated with a group that sacrificed lives for their own gain, and was even willing to sacrifice his brother for the cause. Yukio was tired of fighting, tired of pretending, tired of being tired. He wasn't strong enough to be there for his brother. He isn't even strong enough to keep on going. So while the city roared with gunshots and flames, Yukio walked off, in and out of the house of the woman he loved, tired, into a dark alleyway where the sound of the gun would be muffled by the sounds of the world, tired. He fell to his knees in the snow, picked up his gun, pointed at his head, and pulled the trigger. And this time, there was no phone call. Yukio's character progression was one that came as quite a surprise to me. I'm usually very observant, but while I was caught up in the thrill of the fights and the powers, I sort of found myself thinking less and less about Yukio's part in all this. And I think that's the point in the manga, or at least Yukio's part. Everyone's going through their own problems. The gates of hell are open, and demons are increasing in number day by day. The Illuminati is trying to make the perfect body for Lucifer so he can take over the world. He tends to forget about the 16-year-old boy with a gun. Maybe if he'd open up more. Maybe if his friends had tried a bit harder. Maybe if the world wasn't so cruel to him. Maybe he could have been saved. Everyone's going through a lot in their day-to-day lives. But call that friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Buy a present for that seclusive neighbor. Help somebody feel the joy of the new year. Because you never know how many Yukios are fighting their own demons.